So I'm really excited, if you could tell.
Yeah, you sound excited.
Yeah, I'm super crazy excited.
Yeah, well, it's an exciting kind of day.
Yeah,
Can't
yeah.
contain my excitement either.
Lots of excitement.
Hmm.
Shall we do the show?
Let's
Actually, you
do
know
it.
what I am excited about is we got a couple of new little pre-show taglines from people. People have been
Cool.
great sending these things in. So give me a beat. Well, not like a beatbox.
It's already been sold. $3 billion, buddy. I'm out. I'm out.
Here we go.
Live via alphageekradio.com. The Daily Tech News Show is made possible by patrons like you at patreon.com/acedetect. Thank you. For information on how to contribute, go to bit.ly/helpdtns. You're on the Frog Pants Studios Network. Audio so good, it's like you're there.
This is the Daily Tech News for Monday, June 2nd, 2014. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today to talk about what's happening in San Francisco at the Developers Conference, Mr. Iyaz Akhtar, Senior Associate Editor at CNET and host of several shows on the GFQ network. What's going on, Iyaz?
It's been a busy day, if you'd imagine. Could you imagine that there's like tons of stories about this little fruit company and it just won't ever end? And I got to finally leave my desk after about 2 hours.
Yeah, I hear you. I was glued to my seat they brought it in 2 hours. I'll give them that. We're going to talk about that, of course, and let you know what our thoughts are about the multitude of announcements. But let's start off with the headlines. That new hardware we've been waiting for has finally been announced by the world's leading smartphone maker at its developers conference. Samsung launched the world's first smartphone powered by the Tizen operating system, the Samsung Z, or in some parts of the world, Z. Samsung also uses Tizen in its Galaxy Gear 2 smartwatch and released a developer's kit for Tizen-based TVs. The Z goes on sale in Russia sometime between July and September, and the Tizen Developers Conference is going on this week.
It's not like kids are talking about Tizen TV. The BBC reports the United States has charged a Russian man named Yevgeny Bogachev of being involved in a cybercrime attack affecting more than 1 million computers. Authorities have seized control of a botnet used to steal personal and financial data, though they believe its operators may regain control in about 2 weeks. Bogachev is said to go under names Lucky12345 and Slavic, and is thought to have last resided in Anapa, Russia. Charges filed in a court in Pittsburgh include conspiracy, wire, bank, and computer fraud, and money laundering.
Apple Incorporated announced new features for its main operating systems, OS X and iOS, at its Worldwide Developers Conference in San Francisco. Next version of OS X is going to be called Yosemite. Wait, no, I think it's actually Yosemite. And includes a new design similar to iOS 7, so a little flat, a little pastel, plus several new features, including adding online search to Spotlight and putting the search box in the middle of the screen, AirDrop compatibility with iOS devices, the ability to answer phone calls and send and receive non-iOS text messages from your desktop, as long as your iPhone is nearby. iOS 8 gets a bunch of new features as well, including support for replacement keyboards, kind of my favorite there, platforms for health info called HealthKit and an app called Health, a home automation platform called HomeKit, and a new programming language called Swift that is compatible with Objective-C. Siri got Shazam integration as well as an always-on mode that you can activate by saying, "Hey Siri," and iCloud Drive now is integrated into Finder, just like Dropbox. Works across devices and gets a price cut. 99 cents a month for 20 gigabytes, $4 a month for 200 gigabytes. 5 gigabytes is still free. OS X Yosemite is available to developers at WWDC today and will go into open beta, something they just started doing back in April this summer for anybody to sign up for. And then it comes to everybody for free still in the fall. iOS 8 is available to developers at WWDC today and will come to everybody also for free in the fall.
You Start menu fans, you might have to wait a little longer for its triumphant return. ZDNet's Mary Jo Foley says a change in plans may delay the menu from returning in Windows 8.1 Update 2, expected to arrive in August. Now, it looks like the menu will wait until the release of Threshold, expected in April 2015. Microsoft's Terry Myerson showed off the new Start menu at the Build conference in April, but did not promise when it would arrive.
That's why he didn't do that, just in case they changed it, which they apparently did. Time for some news from you. These are submitted to our subreddit at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. We've got several thousand folks in there submitting stories, voting them up, voting them down. Get in there and join them. Let us know what stuff you would like us to talk about on the show. Alan A.V., for instance, posted the Ars Technica story about a patent troll being ordered to pay court costs. This is the first case of fee shifting being awarded since the Supreme Court had mandated such fees be paid in exceptional cases. A Santa Barbara startup called Find the Best spent $200,000 or so defending itself in a case brought by LumenView, which demanded a $50,000 licensing fee. Now, in the past, you'd be like, spend $200,000 fighting this or spend $50,000 to make it go away. Maybe I'll just make it go away. But now you can shift the fees, and the judge found that LumenView was trying to extract a nuisance settlement. U.S. District Judge Denise Cote wrote, quote, the question of whether this case is exceptional is not close, and fee shifting in this case will serve as an instrument of justice.
And she said it that way, too. Instrument of justice.
She probably wrote it that way. She was thinking of it in her head. Yeah.
TM204 posted the 9 to 5 Google story that ASUS announced a slate of new Android tablets. See what I did there? At Computex, including a lineup for the Mimo Pad series, a next-gen phone pad, and a tablet/laptop/smartphone hybrid, Transformer Book V, or 5, that runs Windows and Android. Now, that last one has a 12.5-inch display with up to a terabyte of storage. ASUS says it's the, quote, world's first 5-mode 3-in-1 covered laptop that features a Windows and Android laptop and tablet as well as an Android smartphone. No price or release dates on any of these new products.
They really wanted to be first at something, didn't they?
Apparently they are.
That is amazing. Like, ASUS, you slay me. I totally want one of those. I don't even care if it's too ridiculous to work. Like, it's too cool not to just have as an example for future generations. Captain Kipper said in the GigaOM story, indicating sources tell the Wall Street Journal and Space News that Google intends to spend around $1 billion to launch 180 small satellites into space in order to provide global internet service. Greg Weiler of O3B Networks is among the people who apparently have joined Google and started a subsidiary company, either called L5 or Worldview, depending on what sources you're looking at. That company supposedly has access to the Q-band spectrum, abandoned by a company called Skybridge. What the service would be and how much it would cost is unknown at this stage.
Metal Freak noted a greatfire.org version of a story, also reported by Reuters, that Google services are being disrupted in China. Greatfire reports the block started 4 days ago and now extend to all Google services. Greatfire also suggests IP addresses that can be used to evade the block. This week marks the 25th anniversary of events in Beijing's Tiananmen Square.
And that, my friends, is a look at the headline. Today, we want to plug a terrific weekly podcast that I have been lucky enough to be a guest on in the past. Roberto Villegas, who is an amazing podcaster, does 8-Bit Life. He talks in depth with an eclectic mix of guests from the online universe. And this week, Roberto's guest is someone awesome. You've probably heard me mention her on this show. If you've watched our post shows on the video or the Thankopolis, you definitely saw her. It's our own producer, Jenny Josephson, who has something to say about how this whole show thing got its start. She's got an incredibly interesting background. I'm about 15 minutes into this show, and I've already learned stuff about Jenny that I didn't know. So you're going to want to check it out. It's at bit.ly/8bitjenny. That's Jennie. And just subscribe to the show. Roberto does a great job with it, and we thank him for having Jenny on and having a great conversation. Check it out. All right, Mr. Akhtar.
Yes, Mr. Myers.
Of the 3,000 or so, actually, I think they really did launch 4,000 APIs today. I read that somewhere. Of the multitude of announcements at WWDC, they broke it down into 3 sections: OS 10 Yosemite and the new things to that, iOS 8 and the new things for users there, and then iOS 8 for developers and the new APIs and developers tool highlights of that there. What are the things that turned your head? Because we're not going to get to all of this stuff.
Well, I guess as a guy who uses a lot of different devices, continuity is the most interesting thing for me, and that's the I guess this is a service that will run between iOS devices and OS 10. So if I'm starting an email on my laptop, I can easily bring it over to my other device. I know I've loved that kind of idea with Bump. I think Google bought Bump so you could move files around it just because of proximity. I know, Tom, you and I have discussed this, and there's been a number of times where I'm like, you two devices are near each other. You should be able to talk to each other. And they brought AirDrop over as well. So this compatibility, if you're totally into Apple's world, which I'm not exactly, that to me was the most interesting because it makes it easier to go, actually an iPhone makes more sense now because I can actually move from my laptop to my mobile and be much more productive.
Now, one downside of this, obviously, is you have to be using an iPhone and an OS 10 device for this to work. It's not going to work with a Windows phone. It's not going to work with an Android phone. But if you are doing that, then the fact that AirDrop can now actually send files back and forth between your phone and your laptop is pretty nifty. Although, again, there have been other ways to do stuff like that. Apple doesn't make it easy, so this becomes easy. Another downside, though, here is I've yet to find out how it authenticates the proximate device. I'm sure that will become plain by the end of the day, but how hackable that is, how spoofable that is something of a concern to me. They made it sound in the keynote like, hey, you just have your phone in your purse across the room, and it's no big deal. It can tell it's there, and it automatically can pick up and send tasks to and from that device, as well as if it's a connected device, turn it into a hotspot without having to activate anything on the phone. Now, that all sounds very convenient to me, but also very concerning if other people could do that to my phone that I don't want to do that to.
I wonder if it'll be kind of like the way Siri can be turned off when you have the lock, in case you want to actually have it that way, so that it's something you have on by default. You can change it so it won't be that accessible. But it looks like they're using a lot of Bluetooth. The connection between effectively making an iPhone a modem for your MacBook Air, which MacBooks should have, I believe one of them should at least have an LTE modem, but none of them do. This is a good little workaround for that. Again, telling people if you have an Apple device with another Apple device, you have a connected laptop, which is not a normal product for Apple just now. And the idea of just integrating Bluetooth so heavily, the simple things of like, oh, my SMS messages are showing up via Notification Center, or my iMessages are. These are small things that, in the long run, that convenience factor is really nice because I've been hacking things like that together my whole life, but to have it built in, it's kind of neat.
So you are going to have to pair your devices via Bluetooth. That is a fairly decent way of doing it. Starman suggests it could either be that or Bonjour. Actually, he's installing 10.10 now, and he'll report back when he finds out. So yeah, it's never as easy as they make it sound, but maybe a one-time setup pairing with Bluetooth. Maybe they're expecting that you've paired your phone with your laptop over Bluetooth for some reason before. That could make sense to me. I tell you, the one that got me to write in all caps was the iOS 8 announcement that came in the developers section about system-wide third-party keyboards being allowed.
Oh my gosh, it was super exciting.
That should have been a standing ovation, don't you think?
I think those guys just don't know how bad it's been, to be honest with you. I have a couple Android devices, and I have SwiftKey on there. I constantly move my thumb around, and then I go back to my iPad, and then I find myself making that mistake of like, oh yeah, I'll just drag. I'm like, oh no, it doesn't work that way. But that's going to change, and this idea of theoretically Apple allowing other utilities being used in there. Maybe one day we'll see being able to change the default app for something. Like if I want to open everything in Chrome, I should be able to do that. So small steps. I'm sure there'll be a lot more revealed as people are digging into the SDK.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because they've added sort of a SwiftKey-like predictive text feature to the standard keyboard that's in iOS 8. So it'll come up with words that you're about to type, and it'll get used to like, oh, if you type to this person, you say these kinds of words, but this person, you say those kind of words. That's kind of nifty. The thing that you'll see all of the people who don't like Apple, right? Because the reactions are always firmly divided between Apple fanboys who are disappointed that more wasn't announced, but viciously defending that which was announced, and then Android people and Windows Phone people who will all be saying, we've had this for years. This announcement is littered with things that have been available on other platforms for a long time.
Yeah, you've seen like the Health Kit sounds a lot like what Samsung's doing with their health platform or S Health or whatever they ended up calling their newest one. Let's say it's Sammy or they've introduced a huge thing like last week, so they've changed the name. So that seems like it's going to be a bit of catch up when it comes to the iOS devices. Simple things like family sharing. This is not, I mean, a feature that should be so touted, but like I'm excited about this idea of, hey, did you buy a movie with the same credit card? I bought a movie with the same credit card, and you can actually share within this world because this seems so simple. It should have been there. But as for this feature catch-up thing, we're getting to a point where it's all about convenience, right? What makes these operating systems better? Because for the most part, the operating system fades away. It's the apps you have to use. And with Apple finally allowing this extensibility for other apps, that makes their apps a little bit more competitive. So the cool stuff you would get on Android, you can get on iOS. It's not going to change anybody's mind to switch, but it's just a neat feature if you've been an iOS person.
Yeah, you know, for instance, the iCloud Drive now working in Finder and being able to access docs from iOS through the handoff. That's kind of nifty, but also very much makes me as a Dropbox user shrug and go, well, yeah, I've been doing that for a long time. Even inside of OS 10, I've been doing that with the third-party app. So it's definitely Apple-like to bring these features on midway, right? They're never ridiculously late, in my opinion, but they're never first with most of these kinds of features. And I don't think anything they're doing here, except maybe HomeKit, is way in front of the curve. HomeKit is the one where I still don't know exactly how it works. They introduced it as an API, so that's why it's called HomeKit. It's a developer kit system. But it's a common network protocol with secure pairings that can group devices into scenes. And that's where it gets interesting, where instead of having 4 different apps for my 4 different devices, let's say I have a Schlage networked lock on my door, and then I have a different garage door opener from somebody, and then I have a Philips Hue light bulb. I don't have to use the 3 different apps to turn on all of them. I can do a scene that says, make sure the garage door is closed, the door is locked, and the lights are off when I leave the house. But they didn't announce an app. They didn't announce a central place for that. So I'm wondering how those scenes are going to be accessed.
Yeah, when I was looking at this, I mean, CNET's done a lot of coverage when it comes to smart home technologies, and one of the things we've seen that's been a problem is kind of like these silos, where you can have devices that talk to each other and it works okay, but it's always better when you have one brand of all things because it works together. But with Apple's HomeKit, if these applications have a way to talk to Siri, so you can say, hey Siri, you know, time to go to bed, and then you have a set macro effectively. If it can be as simple as that, it seems like a lot more companies would continue to make their devices compatible with iOS, and they have a bigger reason to make Apple apps because they can actually talk with each other and not worry about, am I smart things and I can raise a lot of money, or am I like a little no-name company and I can't make any money? So you can, hopefully this will actually be a boon for hardware makers that are trying this, because the big guys can obviously make things work in a really big way. But to have Apple helping these things along, to have a Belkin work with a no-name, that's kind of important.
Yeah, and they're doing a lot of things to allow more accessibility between the apps in a very Apple way, but they're doing extensibility in the SDK. So the OS is still the intermediary between the apps, but apps can find widgets to go to notifications. That's part of the reason that you can do third-party keyboards is because of that extensibility. Lau Roman in the chat room just said, what if LastPass does a keyboard? I'm not sure that the SDK allows LastPass to do all the things I want LastPass to do, but kind of made me salivate a little thinking about that, because I use LastPass on my Nexus 7, and it's great, but it's kind of a pain on any iOS device I use. CloudKit gives developers a lot of cloud options, effectively free with some limits, but they get a pretty generous free account. And then there's the new programming language, Swift, which makes it easy to program, but also works alongside of Objective-C, so they could still use their Objective-C parts of their apps. And Metal, which I don't know if it replaces OpenGL or if it's built upon OpenGL, but it reduces the overhead for 3D graphics. And they had a pretty interesting demo there showing some 3D graphics running on an iOS 8 iPad that keeps the battery from totally draining and does what they said was 10 times faster draw call rates.
Yeah, between Swift and Metal, that seemed like, not that Apple needs any more incentive for developers to continue developing for iOS, But to get these people developing for OS 10, because OS 10, it doesn't exactly have a huge market share. It's not something that people are like, yeah, I'm going to make my apps for here first. By simplifying the language even further and still making it compatible with C, that's such a brilliant idea. They've tried this a bunch of times with different kinds of languages. They tried to like democratize scripting with Apple Script, and it's not exactly lighting the world on fire. This is something that Apple continues to allow to get more and more developers. I mean, it is a developers conference, but the one line of code versus what would normally be like 20, that kind of thing can open doors for kids who are just like, I can get into this. I just have to learn this kind of language. And that to me was, I kind of got excited about that, because I've dabbled in scripting and I suck at it. I suck at code. I will be totally honest with that, because I get so far in and then I screwed up and I don't know where it messed up. The less characters involved in creating something, the better, because I will stick to it, as opposed to just closing my laptop and walking away.
Like I said, there's more here than we could possibly get around to. You can now do audio and video messages through the iMessage app. You can listen to them by raising the phone right to your face. There's a bunch of enterprise features being added. There's a health kit and the health apps that we've just kind of lightly touched on. Anything else particularly, like the Touch ID API is now available, so apps can take advantage of the fingerprint sensor. Any last one you want to get in before we move on?
I mean, Touch ID plus HomeKit plus all that stuff, just hold it down. You can actually be authenticated. I think the thing that I found to be one more thing to add to this is the open beta of OS 10. The public beta of OS 10, not just developers, but if you sign up, you can actually have access to an early edition of that. That's very un-Apple-like. It's gonna.
Did you know that they started doing that for Mavericks April 22nd?
See, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I didn't realize that till I started searching around this afternoon after they announced this, and I was like, oh, I've forgotten that they had done that. I think they did that on the slide to sort of test how that would work. And now they're going to do it full throttle for Yosemite.
They actually, I mean, they mentioned it. Maybe the last year I didn't notice them mentioning it, but I don't remember the mention at all.
They didn't mention it last year. It was April 22nd this year that they opened it up for
Mavericks. My gosh. I thought,
yeah.
Okay, well, that explains that. But that to me was, to even bring that up in the course of the conference, I thought it was pretty cool. And one more point about iDrive before I shut up about it. iDrive sometimes, it's weird because it's Apple moving backwards, because Apple has done all it can with iOS to hide the file system with things like iTunes and iPhoto to give you back a folder structure. I mean, I'm like, yes, a file manager so I can find my stuff, and then it'll open in the proper app. That's such an old style thing for Apple to allow that I'm kind of intrigued about. Well, basically, Craig Federighi saying, look, we're doing it this way, and that's the way it's going to be.
Do you think someone who's really into, I don't know, some kind of skeuomorphism was also against folders, and now the pendulum is swinging back?
Perhaps.
I don't know. Just speculation. All right, folks. I know we didn't touch on maybe one or two of the things that you were most interested in, so send us an email. Don't say you forgot. We didn't forget, but do send us an email saying, hey, you know what? I'm excited about this, and this is why. We'd love to hear from you. feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. A couple of calendar items. Obviously, Worldwide Developers Conference going on in San Francisco for the Apple developers, and that will continue through Friday, June 6th. Also today, if you're an owner of a T-Mobile Nexus 5 or Nexus 7, check your updates. You should be getting Android 4.4.3. On June 3rd and 4th, the Demo Europe conference will not be happening in Russia. According to the conference organizers, quote, second annual Demo Europe has been canceled. We will try our best to make it happen, so stay tuned for news and updates. So there will be one. We just don't know when or where. And the Computex Taipei Conference, still a go. That's the largest information and technology communications trade show in Asia. The second largest in the world, Computex Taipei, also takes place June 3rd to June 6th. Our pick of the day comes from Russell Manthe. He had a book recommendation that might be of interest to our listeners, and I totally, heartily endorse this as well. 6 Easy Pieces by Richard Feynman, the physicist. He says, this is a compilation of 6 lectures on the basics of physics by one of this century's most brilliant minds. The lectures were given to the freshman class at Caltech in the early 60s and were designed to give a general overview of the principles of physics, including basic concepts, relation of physics to other sciences, the theory of gravitation, and quantum behavior. These are are elementary lectures, no math required, and give a tremendous insight into the basics in Feynman's colorful and humorous style, using simple explanations and interesting anecdotes and metaphors. Although these are older, they cover things that have not changed that much in the intervening years. The Audible version of the book is actual recordings of the lectures. It is great to hear them as presented by Feynman himself. And they were taken from the Feynman Lectures on Physics, which I actually have the complete 2-volume set of, which is more than you possibly need. And some of these actually have math in them. So if you want to get an introduction to both physics and Richard Feynman, I can totally heartily endorse Russell there, and maybe even get the audiobook version of it, because hearing Richard Feynman talk is entertaining in and of itself. Are you a Feynmanite?
I'm not a Feynmanite yet. I might be now, because I usually check out the picks of the day, so maybe I will try it.
Yeah, check them out. You can get all our picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. And our message of the day comes from Ashley, left a question in the comments section of our site. I think this is probably a common question a lot of folks have when they think about this sort of stuff. Ashley writes, one question about Google and its driverless vehicles. What's going to be the economic impact of no longer requiring taxi drivers or truck drivers? There was a mention of companies saving about $50,000 a year on salaries per driver. If the driverless concept takes off, which is great for the companies, but how many people are going to lose their jobs? What happens to those people? Unemployment goes up, the job market becomes more competitive, which isn't always a bad thing, but thinking long term, isn't this going to have negative effects? I, for one, welcome our Google overlords and can see the benefits of an interconnected network of vehicles that know where we need to go and when we need to go there. A great simulation on 9 to 5 Google of how intersections of the future will look can be found at a link that she provided. But I often wonder if such increases in efficiency can have long-term negative effects. This is one of those questions where the short answer is it doesn't need to mean a bunch of losses in jobs. This is what the Luddites were upset about way back in the day. And every automation and factory robot that ever came along in the 20th century had the same reaction. It's going to throw us all out of jobs. Generally what happens is it doesn't have nearly as bad of an impact as one expected. But there are exceptions to that. Iyaz, do you think that driverless cars would cause more people to go out of work than the economy can absorb at once?
I don't know if it's going to
happen really fast.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to work that fast, because I'm just thinking of my tales of woe with the GPS that would send me down the wrong area. Just because these are autonomous and they can check out all kinds of things, I think a lot of companies would be, well, first they have to fight with unions to make sure that even happens, to allow somebody to not be employed. But this idea of carefully being there in case of failure. So, a human being at that point becomes like a spare tire, which is a horrible thing to say, but if something goes wrong with the vehicle, a human fixes it. It's not like a robot's going to pop out, fix a tire, if that happens. Unless that happens, which would be really neat too. But I'm thinking it's not going to put people out of jobs just yet because it's so new. Maybe in about 30 to 40 years, there's just going to have to be a shift in the way people take jobs. Because certain jobs, like they were great 200 years ago, but we don't do these kinds of things anymore. Just people then eventually choose different fields.
Yeah, usually these transitions happen slowly enough that you don't just throw a ton of people into the job market right away, which can cause problems in the instances where that happens. And they also tend to allow people to contribute in other ways to the economy, or they open up the possibility of other jobs becoming tenable that weren't tenable before, right? Because that's the knock-on effect of driverless cars is, wait, now transportation is cheaper. Now we can do these things that were too costly before because we had to pay for a driver. And so now the economy has new things that it can provide. All of those things are simpler to say, and none of those things make the guy who's the truck driver who got thrown out of his job feel better. Don't forget that part of it either.
Yeah, I'm saying, I just randomly in my head just thought of a food truck. You could probably prepare things on the go while the car is driving for you. So the thing about what do these people do that used to drive? They might just move to the back. So they might be sorting things and they're tracking things faster, or who knows what they'll be shifted to, because these people still are valuable members of the workforce.
Yeah, absolutely. And if companies are good, they will come up with transition plans that make the best effect. I mean, those drivers may be saving you money, but you may be able to make better use of them, more productive use of them on other things than sitting there driving a truck, right? If a robot can do it, that means a human can do something else. Because for now, we're smarter than robots. When that changes, then we have all kinds of other problems. But thanks for the thought-provoking post, Ashley. Appreciate that. And thank you, iyaz Akhtar, for joining me. I know it's a busy day for all of us, so I really appreciate you taking the time and being on all these Mondays.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really enjoy being here, and I'm going to promote CNET.com today because we've got tons of content coming in, let alone the live stuff that we covered earlier today. We've got Tim Stevens working on a piece right now, like around the corner from here, on Swift, the programming language. We've got lots of galleries coming in, so if you want to get an eye full of iOS 8, or you want to know more about Yosemite, we're going to have a lot of content coming today, and you can find all of it at CNET.com. Or if you're like, I just want to know what's going on at WWDC, CNET.com/WWDC. We're all over this, guys. Trust me, I've seen every piece of content.
Check it out. Also, big thanks to the 4,044 patrons who carefully type in accurate numbers and support us. We really appreciate all the support we get there. It's allowing us to really contemplate doing some cool stuff. So if you see value in what we're doing right now and you want to give a little value back, bit.ly/helpdtns, or if you're one of those 4,044 people who have already done that, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. We really appreciate your support. Don't forget, you can have a voice in what stories we cover, too. That's support as well. Subreddit, dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. You can email us. Our feedback address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. You can give us a call. Leave us a voicemail. That number is 512-59-DAILY. 512-593-2459. And listen to the show live, mobile.alphageekradio.com, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific. And you can find all the links at dailytechnewsshow.com. We'll be back tomorrow with Lamar Wilson as our guest. See you then.
For more information about this and other shows, visit frogpants.com. Audio program so good, it's like you're
Yay.
Yay! Da, 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 da. And the star of this week's 8-Bit Radio, Jenny Josephson.
It was fun. Good show, guys.
Good stuff.
Show.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
stuff.
Always fun.
Always so fun.
If I have more fun, I'm just going to explode.
I can tell.
No, it's always fun. I was listening to the live stream of the keynote, and it's 2 hours of stuff, and just parsing all of it while trying to get content up. It was just like, I need to talk about this out loud soon or explode.
I was watching all of this stuff, and I was like, God, how are we going to wrap our heads around all of these? And I think we did a good job. Like, fairly comprehensive job is what I was about to say, too. Like, we didn't cover everything, but we got to more things than I thought we'd be able to fit in.
I think a lot of it's just because they're also intermingled. It's not like one, like Touch ID API by itself is not exciting, but if you add it to something else, like all of this stuff seems to be, it's a really cohesive approach to the operating systems, both of them. So, although we didn't mention anything like there's no hardware, and we're really upset about that. You know, I was really expecting an iCar today, and I was really upset about that.
See, I didn't feel that way though. I know a lot of people did, but I was sort of like, yeah, you're probably not going to get any hardware announcements. You might get one, but I won't be shocked if we didn't, and we didn't. Yeah,
I would think if we're getting any hardware, it's going to be like, oh, here's a spec bump for the MacBook Air, and when it comes out in fall, probably when we'll see all the new stuff.
And the thing is, when they do spec bumps, they don't always work them into announcements. Sometimes they just make them happen. So it would have to have fit into the rest of the announcements somehow to make sense.
You know, I noticed something odd during the keynote. It looked like, you know, like when you have an iOS demo, there's a little white dot when people are like moving around, so you can see what that looks like.
Right.
There was this weird, I don't know if it was just my stream, it was like a weird black blob on the top right when they were showing OS 10. And I was like, is that? And it kept disappearing every now and then, so I'm like, I'm sure it's not the stream. I'm like, what is that?
I didn't notice that, but I was watching on my iPad. I just had it set up while, you know, with my laptop, so I could carry it around.
I don't know if any stills of it. Like, I'm like, that can't be like a touch thing, but I don't know. That's something they've said they would never do guerrilla arming. So.
Oh yeah. When they announced that that preview for OS 10 Yosemite, did you notice how quickly they took that URL off the screen?
Did you notice they put Dr. Dre's phone number up?
Oh, no, I didn't notice that. I was looking when they showed, I think when they showed Phil Schiller's contact, and his phone number was listed as 555, so I was
They had
like,
like,
oh,
they had like
changed.
973 3 something something. Wait, that looked to be a real number. Maybe I
Wow.
didn't catch the middle exchange. Maybe I just got caught up in the excitement of the area code.
Oh, we didn't even mention the fact that they called Dre.
As if he was reading off a cue card of, I am very glad that developers make applications for Mac OS 10. It was the new Dre voice for OS 10.
Wait, 973 is New Jersey, right?
I don't know.
Hold
I
on.
don't know if my memory's that good.
I have to investigate now.
I'm fairly sure
Is that-
973 is not a joke in your town.
They didn't
Yeah.
mention Beats at all, by the way. It was like,
No, well, they don't own it yet. That didn't surprise me at all. I thought they're going to have a nod, and they did, by Colin Dre, and that's it. That's, you know, I mean, they're in the acquisition process right now.
yeah, they're saying Dre's going to come in for training, and not training, his first day orientation. And, I mean, it was cutesy, but I guess, interestingly enough, was just the amount of, what was it, his name's Craig, right? Is that his
Craig
name?
Federighi, yeah.
He was all over the place. And that terrible comedy bit,
Which
it just
one?
showed, I was like, okay, you guys are so soft. Like, you're the VP of software. I so see it.
Yeah.
It was hilariously bad, and I thought that truly showed the geekiness of Apple now. It's not the cool Apple. It's more like, we're nerds. And we're
I thought the
okay with
multi-threaded joke would go over better than it did, to be honest. All right, what are we calling this?
We have a couple of titles. We have
it. Never got to make fun of Hey
OS
Siri.
X. Yeah.
Hey Siri,
Apple's
you're so fine.
Apple's Home Run. We have OS X 1010. It doesn't rhyme with Vegemite.
Yosemite.
Apple brings kits. We had one outlier, which was we're rich. No, wait. Which I believe has more to do with us
Yeah.
than Apple.
I saw that yesterday. I was like, what the hell happened?
Yeah.
Oh,
Somebody
gosh.
Well,
got
good for
tired.
you.
Then we
but
have
also-
a new language to rule them all.
Mm.
I know. And then we had one which was, I think, taken from a Futurama episode called A Fistful of Dollars. Those are the options at the moment.
A modest programming proposal.
yeah,
Swift.
I kind of like that. Oh, then there's also just the very simple "Hey Siri."
Say, hey Siri, you're so fine. You're so fine. You blow my mind. Hey Siri.
Hey
Hey
Siri.
Siri, give me a sandwich.
You know what's weird about that now, though? Is like technically couldn't Siri just call up Instacart or Yummy.com and get you a sandwich?
Mm-hmm.
We're actually not that far.
We've noticed that you've eaten the sandwich 25 times. You checked in, so clearly we know what you want.
We've already ordered your sandwich for you.
Predictive sandwiches.
Predictive sandwich ordering.
That has nothing to do with
Sandwich.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about widgets in iOS 8. They had them in Notification Center.
I mentioned it in the headline, you're right, but we didn't really discuss
I thought it was
them.
like, hey, thank goodness.
I don't really ever use that notification screen. Maybe that's why I was less excited.
I end up using Google now so often that I'm like, where is it? I keep mixing up things. I'm like, okay, I want to swipe down to have Spotlight on Android, which doesn't exist, and I swipe on keyboards on iOS thinking it's SwiftKey, which is also not there. Let's see. Are you gonna? Let's see.
Not now, mother. Oh, Archiver's title of For Great Justice.
Oh, I like that.
Instrument.
Even though it
of
has nothing to do with
Justice.
Apple.
Yeah.
It should be Instrument of Justice, in parentheses, and Apple.
For great justice. Take off every Samsung Z.
Should you feel like the new Tizen TVs are here.
The new Tizen TVs are here. The new Tizen TVs are here. I'm so excited.
Actually, there might be some kind
This-
of.
All right, I'm doing for great
Okay,
justice.
I do not get for great justice. Will someone explain that to me? Because I've looked it up in Urban Dictionary. I still don't get it.
Oh, all your base are belong to us. It's one of
Okay.
the phrases from that.
What? Gotcha. When you know what you're doing, move zig for great justice.
Take off every Samsung Z.
Too many memes deep for me. That's like 3 memes deep.
It's 3 deep. It's for sure.
That's like an Inception meme. An Incepted meme. A meme within a meme within a meme.
So Mimi.
Now, normally I hang out, but I've got to go back to the whole.
You gotta go do
thing.
work.
No problem. I'm just going to do some readings.
Okay, you do that, and I will talk to you, I think, next Monday.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
All right.
Sounds good. Have a good one, man.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
I'm
I think
exporting.
it would be a great thing is Merritt reads Feynman.
Actually, I might change to take off every Samsung Z.
Yeah.
Merritt reads Feynman.
Yeah.
The limiting case is what is shown in Figure 30-2. The end.
Well, now that Cosmos has gotten like a little too preachy, even for me, maybe it's time to go back to Feynman.
Ooh, really?
Because-
You're speaking of yesterday's Cosmos?
Well, I only saw the title and I was like, facepalm, this is going to be so angry.
I'm interested
and
to see what
yelly.
Brian thinks of it, because
Yeah.
girded for preachiness, I found it to be of average preachiness.
Okay.
But yeah, the title was pretty inflammatory, right?
Yeah, because here's my thing, and I did not watch the original Cosmos series, so I don't have the comparative, like if this is more activist or less activist than the original series. I would tend to say more, and I would tend to say necessary, but somehow it's being done in a way that doesn't always go down smooth. Even for me, who believes everything Neil deGrasse Tyson says and thinks he's the bomb. The writing in it is a little like, take your medicine.
I don't like it when they get when they get preachy, and I think
Right.
Tyson has the tendency to sound a little preachy naturally, even when he's not being
Right.
preachy,
Right.
which can be
Because
actually
he's
pretty
right.
good when he's talking about something totally neutral, because you're
Right.
like, oh wow, he's really into it, right?
Right.
He's just talking about protons, but how cool is that? But when it's actually written as preachy, then it just sounds like he's nagging you.
Yeah, and I love everything about that show. I love so much about it, except that I do get a strong whiff of that, and I agree with everything he says. So it's like a weird
Yeah.
cognitive dissonance. But
Well,
yeah,
you should
Archiver
agree.
is right.
It's science.
Yeah, he's the joke is that I'm annoyed at him for actively promoting science. which
Right.
is
Well,
ridiculous.
because
That's how far we've come.
I don't know how to put my finger on it exactly, but there are times
Yeah.
when he departs from purely speaking of science and says, therefore we should do X. And it's like,
Right.
well,
Right.
maybe. Science doesn't dictate that.
I mean, and it's Seth too. It's not just. It's not
Mhm.
just.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, they're
It
not
doesn't
allowing the
very
guy to
well.
write strings of curse words, and so it all
Right.
gets like
Channeled.
sublimated. Yeah.
right.
I know Justin Robert Young just is so rubbed the wrong way by Neil deGrasse Tyson. Take off every Samsung Zig. I think they should have
That's the
called it the
title?
Samsung Zig. Yeah, I changed it to that. Archiver convinced me. I watched the Cosmos episode and I was very on my toes to be like, okay, are they going over the
Right.
line? Are they saying anything preachy? And I just didn't. I felt like it was no different than any other episode.
Same level. Same
Yeah.
level.
Like every
I,
once in a while, a little bit preachy, but not crazy.
I do feel that wonderful sense of awe almost every episode. Like, it's just tremendous the way that they build a case and then nail it at the end. So
Uh huh.
that part of the writing I like a lot. I do feel like, and I don't know how many more episodes are left, to be honest, but one. Oh, so only one. I do feel like we did not get enough space in this story about space.
Yeah, I wonder if they overcorrected, because it seems like they only did like 2 or 3 real cosmology episodes.
Oh man, I wanted like galaxies and time travel-y stuff, and I wanted them to like nerd out on alternate universes, and I didn't get that. But I guess they're making a point, which is we don't even know our own planet anymore, so maybe we don't deserve all the other stuff.
Some of that stuff there isn't actually science for. Like the multiverse stuff is merely an alternate theory to supersymmetry, and everybody is hoping supersymmetry proves true because they don't want to deal with multiverses. So it makes for fun like thought experiments, but it's not like, oh, and we can say that blah exists. So I understand why they might not go in some directions, because they're wanting to keep it very, on the nose. But and time travel is the same way. But they could have done more space. There's lots of space stuff that's,
there's a lot of legit crazy space stuff. Yeah.
The multiverse is merely a Marvel theory, says Subgons.
I know, Tinvec, but I am a non-nerd, so...
Are you?
Well, I'm a... What is it? I'm a nerd without substance.
Well, I feel like what you're saying is you may not feel very geeky, but...
Right.
I think nerd...
Yeah, no, I'm pretty nerdy. But, like, I think to really be a nerd or a geek, there has to be an underlying element of basic knowledge in something. And I am perpetually the mile wide, inch deep, little bit of everything, no depth. And I say that without mocking myself, because there is really something to be said for trying to know everything.
Yeah. You're pretty nerdy about this stuff.
Yeah, there's no core baseline, like, science is here. I could tell you this about science, or I could tell you this about math, and I've always added that into the geeky, nerdy equation.
I always feel like geeky is the depth one, and nerdy is the more passion enthusiast one.
Okay, well then I would be nerdy, if not
people
geeky.
Define it different ways, so yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. Well,
don't you have another show you gotta go do?
Yeah, I got to go get ready for Cord Killers. I'm out of the dock.
Oh, I gotta go.
Or out of the post. So thanks everybody for hanging out. We'll see you tomorrow.